Photography is a tool that is easily available to many of us nowadays. But at the turn of the 20th century, photographs were mainly produced in photographic studios such as Lambert and Company. The creators behind these photographs in this rare album that gives us a glimpse of Singapore in the early days. This album contains 65 photographs of Singapore, dated between the 1890s and 1900. The photographs depict a lifestyle and scene in Singapore. These photographs includes portrait photographs of people of different ethnic groups, of people of different occupations, and photographs of the common modes of transport in Singapore back in the early days, and of the landscape and buildings in Singapore back then. The photographs were produced by Lambert and Company, one of the early commercial photographic studios in Singapore. The company was named after Gustav Richard Lambert, a German who came to Singapore and established the studio in 1867. Lambert managed the studio until the 1880s when he left for Europe, and he left the studio under the management of his partner Alexander Cook. Under Cook, the studio expanded and he established studios in Battery Road and Orchard Road. The studio also had regional offices in Sumatra, in Kuala Lumpur, and in Bangkok. And it was also appointed as the official photographer of the King of Siam and the Sultan of Johor. One of the photographs in the album is this photograph of Commercial Square. This was the designated business centre of Singapore. In 1858, Commercial Square was renamed Raffles Place after Sir Stamford Raffles. The photograph is taken from the endpoint of Johnston's Pier, looking towards Commercial Square. Johnston Pier was at the time a prominent landmark of Singapore. Visitors coming to Singapore would land at Johnston's Pier and would enter straight into the business district of Singapore and be greeted by the elegant modern buildings. Another interesting picture is a photograph of Orchard Road. The photograph shows a rustic country road, very different from modern-day Orchard Road. Orchard Road in the early days were dominated by plantations of gambia and pepper. Later, it was dominated by nutmeg and fruit orchards, hence the name Orchard Road. But according to another version of the history of Orchard Road, the road was named after a Mr. Orchard, who was a keen gardener and who owned a plantation at the corner of what is now Scots Road and Orchard Road. The album was dedicated to Mr. Valenzer. The front cover of the album has a German inscription, which roughly translated to our dear friend Valenzer, for friendly remembrance, Singapore, May 1901. From notices published in the Straits Times, we know of a Mr. T. Valenzer who departed Singapore in May 1901, bound for Europe. And between 1897 and 1901, Mr. J. Valenzer was mentioned in the Straits Directory, the local business directory. And according to the directory, Mr. J. Valenzer was working for Brinkman and Company, a trading company that had offices in Britain and Germany. So this T. Valenzer and J. Valenzer may be the Valenzer that was referred to in this album, but unfortunately we don't have further information. Apart from photographs of landscape and scenery in Singapore, the photo album also contained portrait photographs of people of different ethnic groups. Many of these photographs were shot in studios and were staged to demonstrate the lifestyle and characteristics of these people. So it's interesting to look at these photographs to see how the photographer viewed and understood the subject in front of the camera, as these photographs would have played an important role in shaping European conception of Asian population living in Singapore.